Who are you? Not your name, not your age, not your job, not what people call you. Who are you really? It's a simple question. And most people spend their entire lives running from it, because asking who am I is easy. Answering it is terrifying. This is the story of a young man who thought he knew exactly who he was, until one question changed everything. A question so simple that it haunted him for years. A question that forced him to confront his fears, his excuses, and the life he was living. That question was, who are you? At 23 years old, Omar felt lost. From the outside, his life looked normal. He had friends, family that cared about him, a phone full of contacts, social media followers, a decent education. But every night, when the world became quiet and there was nobody around to impress, Omar felt something he couldn't explain. Emptiness. The kind of emptiness that appears when you're living a life that doesn't feel like your own. Every day felt the same. Wake up, scroll, eat, watch videos. Waste time, sleep. Days became weeks. Days became months. Months became years. And yet nothing changed. Omar often told himself he was figuring things out. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't figuring things out. He was hiding. Hiding from decisions. Hiding from responsibility. Hiding from the fear of failure. And most importantly, hiding from himself. One evening, while scrolling through social media, he saw an old classmate. The same classmate who used to struggle in school. Now he was successful, confident, focused, purposeful. As Omar watched the video, jealousy appeared, not because of the money, not because of the success, but because the young man seemed certain about who he was, and Omar wasn't. That night he couldn't sleep. The question kept repeating inside his mind. Why does everyone seem to know where they're going except me? The next morning, while walking through the city, Omar noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a park bench. The man seemed peaceful, completely at peace. Something about him caught Omar's attention. Without knowing why, he sat beside him. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. Then suddenly the old man asked, "Who are you?" Omar laughed. "I'm Omar." The old man smiled. "No, what do you mean? I didn't ask your name." Omar looked confused. The old man asked again, "Who are you?" "I'm a student." The old man shook his head. "That's what you do, not who you are." Omar paused. The man continued, "Who are you?" Omar thought for a moment. "I'm the eldest son in my family." Again, the old man shook his head. "That's your role, not who you are." Now Omar was frustrated. The old man leaned closer. "If everything was taken away, your phone, your money, your job, your reputation, your followers, your titles, who would remain for the first time in his life?" Omar had no answer, and that terrified him, because he realized something. He had spent years building an image, but almost no time building himself. The old man stood up and prepared to leave. Before walking away, he said one final sentence. "The most important journey in life is discovering who you are when nobody is watching." Then he disappeared into the crowd. That night, Omar stood in front of his mirror, looking at his own reflection. For several minutes, he simply stared. Then he asked himself, "Who are you?" The room remained silent. No answer, only discomfort. Because deep down, he knew he had become someone he didn't respect. Someone who talked more than he acted. Someone who dreamed more than he worked. Someone who wanted success, but avoided sacrifice. Someone who blamed circumstances instead of taking responsibility. The realization hurt. But it was also the beginning. Because before you can become the person you're meant to be, you must first be honest about the person you are. And that night, for the first time in years, Omar was honest. The next morning, he began writing in a notebook. At the top of the page, he wrote, "Who am I?" Then he started listing everything he believed about himself. Some answers were positive. Some were painful. But one thing became clear. Most of his identity had been built from other people's opinions. Teachers had told him who he was. Friends had told him who he was. Society had told him who he was. Social media had told him who he should be. But almost nobody had asked him who he wanted to become. And that's when everything changed. Because Omar finally understood something powerful. You are not defined by your past. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are not defined by other people's expectations. You are defined by your choices. And every choice is a vote for the person you are becoming. For the first time, Omar felt hope. Not because his life had changed, but because he realized it could. And that realization marked the beginning of a journey that would transform him forever. The next few days felt strange. Nothing around Omar had changed. The same room, the same city, the same people, the same life. Yet somehow everything felt different. Because for the first time, he wasn't looking at the world, he was looking at himself, and he didn't like what he saw. Everywhere he looked, he found contradictions. He said he wanted success, but he wasted hours every day. He said he wanted confidence, but he avoided difficult situations. He said he wanted a better future, but his actions looked exactly like his past. It was painful, but it was real. And reality has a strange power. The moment you stop lying to yourself, growth becomes possible. One evening, Omar opened his notebook again. At the top of a new page, he wrote, "Who do I want to become?" For a long time, he stared at the blank page. Then slowly he began writing. Disciplined, honest, strong, reliable, focused, confident, a man who keeps his promises, or a man who helps his family, a man who respects himself. When he finished writing, he looked at the list. Then he looked at his current life. The gap between the two was enormous, and for a moment, he felt overwhelmed. How could he ever become that person? The answer came unexpectedly, one step at a time. Not one giant change, not one perfect day, one small choice, repeated daily. So Omar started small, very small. He began waking up 30 minutes earlier, started reading 10 pages a day. He exercised for 20 minutes, he reduced his screen time. Simple habits, nothing impressive. But each habit carried a message. Every time he followed through, he was proving something to himself. He was proving that change was possible. Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, the person in the mirror began changing. Not physically, mentally. The old Omar searched for comfort. The new Omar searched for growth. The old Omar avoided challenges. The new Omar leaned into them. The old Omar wanted quick results. The new Omar focused on progress. For the first time in years, he felt proud of himself. Not because he had achieved success, because he was becoming someone he respected. But life has a way of testing people, especially when they're changing. One afternoon, Omar met some old friends. As they sat together, the conversation quickly became familiar. Complaints, excuses, blaming other people, blaming the economy, blaming circumstances. Months earlier, Omar would have joined them. Now, something felt different. He realized he was listening to conversations he had outgrown, and that realization scared him, because growth often comes with loneliness. The people around you may remain the same while you change. The habits that once felt normal start feeling uncomfortable. Conversations that once entertained you start feeling empty. For the first time, Omar understood why many people never change. Because changing requires leaving behind parts of your old identity, and that's difficult. It's very difficult. A few weeks later, life tested him even harder. He applied for an opportunity he desperately wanted. He spent days preparing, days hoping, days imagining success. Then the rejection email arrived. Just like that, rejected. Omar stared at the screen. The old feelings returned. Doubt, frustration, disappointment. A voice inside his head whispered, "See? Nothing has changed. You're still the same person." For several days he struggled, questioned himself, questioned his progress, questioned everything. Then one night he remembered the old man from the park. The most important journey in life is discovering who you are when nobody is watching. Suddenly, Omar understood something. His identity couldn't depend on success, because success comes and goes. His identity couldn't depend on failure, because failure comes and goes. His identity couldn't depend on other people's opinions, because opinions change. Who he was had to be deeper than all of those things. The next morning, he got up and went back to work. Not because he felt motivated, not because he felt confident, but because he knew who he wanted to become, and that changed everything. Months turned into a year. The transformation wasn't dramatic, it was gradual. It's like a sunrise, slow enough that most people didn't notice, powerful enough to change everything. Omar became more disciplined, more confident, more resilient. He stopped needing constant validation. He stopped comparing himself to everyone else. He stopped chasing approval, because he realized something important. The strongest people aren't the ones who know exactly what will happen. They're the ones who know who they are regardless of what happens. One day, while cleaning his room, Omar found an old photograph. It was taken several years earlier. Looked at the young man in the picture. The same face. The same eyes. Yet a completely different person. The boy in that picture was lost, confused, waiting for life to change. The man holding the picture had changed. Not because life became easier, because he stopped running from himself. For a long time, he stared at that photograph. Then he smiled, because he finally understood the answer to the question that had haunted him. Who are you? You are not your failures. You are not your fears. You are not your past. You are not the opinions of strangers. You are not the labels people place on you. You are the choices you make when nobody's watching. You are the habits you build. You are the promises you keep. You are the person you decide to become. Years later, Omar found himself walking through the same park where he had met the old man. Oh, the same bench was there, the same trees, the same quiet atmosphere. But the old man was nowhere to be found. Omar sat down and looked around. For a moment, he wondered if he would ever see him again. Then he laughed, because maybe he wasn't supposed to. Maybe the old man had already given him exactly what he needed. Not answers a question. Sometimes a powerful question can change a life more than 1,000 answers. As the sun began setting, Omar looked at the sky and thought about all the people struggling with the same question. People searching for purpose, searching for confidence, searching for meaning, searching for themselves. And if he could tell them one thing, it would be this. Stop asking the world who you are. The world doesn't know. Stop asking social media who you are. It doesn't know either. Stop asking other people to define your identity. They can't. Instead, ask yourself, then build the answer through your actions. Because your identity isn't something you find, something you create, day by day, choice by choice, habit by habit, until one day you wake up and realize you've become the person you once dreamed of being. And when someone finally asks, "Who are you?" you won't need to think. You won't need to impress anyone. You won't need to prove anything because you'll know, not because someone told you, but because you earned the answer. And that is one of the most powerful feelings a person can experience. The feeling of knowing exactly who they are, feeling of becoming the person they were meant to be, the feeling of finally coming home to themselves. And that is where the real journey begins.